until now, there's been absolutely no method to my motherhood. I've just kind of basically been winging it a bit, hoping instincts would be enough. There've been a few instances where I've thought, I don't really know what I'm doing, and I don't know how to handle this situation. I actually need to decide now what kind of mother I want to be. Am I going to be strict, or am I going to be relaxed and happy-go-lucky? I don't really know.
This video on YouTube titled, "Is There a Right Method to Parenting?" has over 1.2 million views. So obviously, it's a question a lot of parents have. What Sherry is pondering is what researchers refer to as a parenting style. Well, Sherry, we have news. There is a right parenting style, and only about a third of parents get it right. The last thing we want to do is sound pompous, but there's no easy way to say this other than that parenting style was neither of your proposed choices. When researchers think about parenting, there's a legend who comes to mind, and she should be legendary among parents because of her work. Dr. Diana Baumrind. It's impossible to state the significance of her work, which she started in the 1960s at Berkeley, when a lot of people were struggling about how to parent. The struggle was totally understandable. During World War II, adults were taught to do pretty horrible things in the name of obedience. And the 1960s were pretty much anti-authority, which extended to how many children were being parented. But Dr. Baumrind worried that the pendulum had swung too far anti-authority. In what became her life's work, she started observing families with preschoolers to see how they were parented and followed those children for over a decade through their teen years. Her work has been replicated in hundreds of studies, cross-culturally and around the world since her initial publications in 1966 and 1967. That's 60 years ago. As the best parenting style for child's optimal outcome. The world lost Diana Baumrind when she was 90. But before we did, we were so profoundly blessed that she nominated a team of 4 of her closest researchers to codify her work into a parenting program for MindEDU. Dr. Robert Larzelere, Dr. Marjorie Gunnoe, Dr. Jelani Mandara, and Dr. Tao Wang. When it was time to video this, we were unable to get everyone together due to the coronavirus, but Dr. Marjorie Gunnoe was able to record this video from her home.
Dr. Baumrind focused on 2 dimensions of parenting. She called them responsiveness and demandingness, but we could think of them as the 2 S's, support and standards. Children need support because it helps them feel good about themselves, and it gives them that sense of belonging that is so important that we've talked about in some of our other MindEDU videos. Support also helps children feel good about their parents. And when they feel good about their parents, they're less likely to resist them. They're more open to parental direction because they want to grow up to be like their parents. Children need standards because we all have a drive to be competent, but we need help figuring out what to aim for. Children need their parents to clearly label, this is good behavior, this is bad behavior. Standards can also have a sort of propulsion effect. They are external, but they prompt the child to turn into themselves and muster up that strength to persevere or to do something they don't want to do, like share their toys or finish a homework assignment that is particularly difficult. Sometimes as parents, we see our children struggling and we want to jump in and save them or do something for them. But Baumrind found that when we do this, we actually deprive our children of a very necessary training opportunity that they need to develop the kinds of skills they're going to be required in adulthood. Things like perseverance, self-confidence and self-discipline, and good old-fashioned grit. Now, if we take those 2 dimensions and we put them on a grid, one on the horizontal axis and one on the vertical axis, you see that we have 4 quadrants or 4 parenting styles. Initially, Baumrind focused on only 3 of these, but in 1983, 2 other researchers, Maccabee and Martin, wrote about the 4th parenting style. And now almost all developmental psychologists will talk about the 4 basic parenting styles. We call these authoritative, authoritarian, permissive, and disengaged. We will begin talking about the style that psychologists are most concerned about. Disengaged parents don't give their children either of the things that children really need. Now, there are some parents who are disengaged because they just don't really want to be parents. But more often, disengaged parents are so overwhelmed trying to provide their children with the basic physical things they need, like food and shelter, that they just don't have anything left to attend to their children's psychological needs. Now, not surprisingly, children of disengaged parents usually grow up to be the most poorly adjusted in adulthood. There are two parenting styles where parents give their children one of the things children need, but not the other. Permissive parents are high on support, but low in standards. You could think of the permissive parent as sort of more like a friend than a parent. Sometimes they will try very hard to avoid any confrontation with their child and just hope that love is going to be enough. They do this for a variety of reasons. One reason is that they might be very concerned about autonomy. They want their children to grow up being people who make their own decisions. Another reason may be that they're very concerned about self-esteem. They want their children to always feel good about themselves, and they think that the best way to do this is to make sure that the child is always happy. Ironically, some of these parents who are concerned that their children will always feel good about themselves end up having children who feel bad about themselves because when they begin comparing themselves to their peers, they recognize that they just don't have the same set of competencies that are seen in children who have been made to behave maturely from a very young age. Now, parents can also err on the other side. Authoritarian parents have high standards but low support. You could think of the authoritarian parent as sort of more like a drill sergeant than a parent. They give a lot of orders, and they expect these orders to be followed immediately without questioning and without them giving an explanation for why the order, the rule might be good. Sometimes they even require children to obey the first words that come out of their mouth, even if it's kind of clear to everybody involved that this was not a very good, well thought out set of instructions. Authoritarian parents do this also for a variety of reasons. Usually they are concerned about obedience and authority. They want their children to grow up to be responsible, respectful, obedient citizens. Ironically, this too can backfire because when children have too much emphasis placed on obedience, they often grow up to be rebellious. And if they don't rebel, they often become depressed. And we know from other research that one of the best predictors of depression in adulthood is a lack of support in childhood and adolescence. Moving now to the sweet spot in the graph. Authoritative parents give their children both of the things that children really need. Concerning support, they give hugs and praise, and they show interest in their kids' hobbies. Concerning standards, authoritative parents are confident in their role as an authority figure in their child's life. They make rules, but they give explanations for why the rules are good and necessary. And they often allow a little bit of negotiation in the way that the rules are carried out. They discipline, but they do so in a way that is not humiliating or in the child's face. They will generally try to let the child keep a little bit of personal control in the disciplinary encounter. For example, they might say to the child, you need to stay in your room until you decide that you are ready to apologize. Or they might give the child a chore so that the child can earn a little bit of money to replace the candy that they took from their sibling. Now, because children of authoritative parents grow up with a lot of love and a lot of practice behaving in a mature way, they are usually the best adjusted in adulthood. They are kind and cooperative because their parents were kind and cooperative. They are able to persevere in difficult situations because they have had practice doing this ever since they were quite young. Concerning rules, they often obey them even when no one is watching because they genuinely want to grow up to be like the parent that they love and respect. So, authoritative parents show us that we do not have to choose between being a doormat or super strict. Rather, we can give our children both of the things they need to develop the full package of competencies that are necessary to be a healthy, happy, well-adjusted person during adulthood.